Trevor Shaw. I have the honor of serving as the president of the chamber and as tonight's moderator and as a former school board member and school board president. It's exciting to be able to moderate the forum, and I was actually elected to office 10 years ago this October, so kind of come full circle, and so this is a fun way to kick off election season. But if we could all start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Please rise and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and thank you to our friends over at KPU for live streaming tonight on bit.ly/KPU TV and also on KPU channel 657. And to the folks who are in the audience, did I get it right? 75. 675. I am dyslexic. It's a good thing I looked up and he laughed. So 675. To the folks who are like, wait a minute, that's not the channel I'm on. And to everyone who is in the audience this evening. So we'll get started. We'll do opening statements first, a series of questions. And depending on how much time we have at the end of the questions that we already have, we may take some questions from the audience as well. And then at which point the candidates will have an opportunity to give closing statements. Unless stated otherwise, the opening statements, closing statements, and the questions will be 1 minute each. We'll alternate the order in which we start. Who gets to go first? And then Jackie, sitting up here in the front row, will give you your cards when you're getting close to your time running out. So please try to stick to that so we can get through as many of these questions as we possibly can. So we'll open up first with opening statements and introductions, and we'll start the closest to me, and then you'll keep your microphone on the table to pass around to whoever goes next. So we'll start with you, Rob. Okay.
Good evening, and thank you for coming tonight. I want to thank everyone that put this on. This is great. It's wonderful that we can meet and talk. I want to thank my opponents. I am just excited for the competition we have this year. It's pretty exciting. We've got people that are coming out into the limelight now again, and we have people that are maybe from retirement and coming back, and me, I'm getting close to retirement, but I'm not there yet. So my name is Rob Arnold. I lived here since 2000. I work on the ferry, so I'm a purser. My wife has lived here all her life, and her mother and family are they've been here, and they're from Ketchikan, but they moved here. The reason I'm running is because I think that we have opportunities in the education system in this town. We have a public school system that I feel that we as public are not getting our money's worth, and that we need to really think about how we can help and do better.
Thank you.
Gotta make sure Jackie's ready. Are you ready?
Right.
All righty. Hello, everybody. My name is Catherine Tatsuda. I am very thankful to be here with all of you and everybody who's watching on KPU. I am a fourth generation Ketchikan born resident. My family owned Tatsuda's IGA here in Ketchikan for 104 years. I grew up in that business. I remember when my dad built the last gas station back in 1984, I learned about marketing by going with him to the Daily News when I was a little girl, and he would update the ad every single week. I learned about business by watching and then by doing. I literally, really, truly worked my way from cashier up to CEO of our family's business and learned a lot about organizational leadership, team building, community building while I was doing it. I'm excited to run, to be a part of the community again.
Thank you. And thank the Chamber of Commerce for putting on this event and for KPU for televising it to our communities so that they have a chance to be able to select the best members that they see. I was born and raised in Ketchikan. Lived in Seattle off and on for about 35 years. During that time, I graduated from high school in Seattle. I retired, but in looking back at the 45 years that I worked, all but a couple of those years were in education, either at the nonprofit, K through 12 or the university level. I was also I was also on different councils and boards and committees, and currently I'm a member of the Ketchikan Indian Community Tribal Council. I have two granddaughters and countless nieces and nephews, and that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Well, good evening. I just want to say thank you for having me here. I appreciate the people who have worked tirelessly to put this together and allow our community to be involved with this. My name is Hillary Reichenberg. I am a mother of 3 little girls, and I grew up in the Kenai Peninsula area. I moved here in about 98, and ever since then, I just have not been able to stay away very long. So for me, I have grown my career throughout, as she said, Ketchikan Indian Community in the education department, and I have grown a very big part in our Native community specifically. So I'm running to, get that exposure for us younger people who want to run for these types of things. And I hope that this isn't going to be the first time I'm running. So
Great. We can hand that back to Catherine as she'll start our next question. Thank you, everybody. And this is a good opportunity to figure out what your 60-second radio ad's going to sound like, because it is amazing how fast 60 seconds goes by. Yes.
Yeah, instruct everybody just move the microphone a little bit closer to your mouth so we can make sure everybody hears it.
And you can use your outside voice. It's okay. So we'll move into our first question. If there was any one item or issue you could tackle or solve within the district in one term, other than funding limitations, what would it be and how?
What would it be and how? If it was one item that I could do in one term, which is 3 years, what would it be and how? I had a really great conversation earlier today with a teacher. And I've actually had a lot of conversations with a lot of different people. The district has had significant turnover over the last few years. Not just teachers, not just paras or substitutes, but up at the top level. I think we've had at least five different superintendents over the last 5 years. As well as some HR turnover, as well as different business managers, right? What I would like to do is in one term, is to create a strong foundation for the operations of the school district to make sure we have proper systems and procedures and operations so that we are not people heavy focused. When we have a strong organization, then we can properly do the work that we do of educating our kids.
Same question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what would I do in 3 years? I think that what I would like to see created and I think it will be created is for our students and our staff and faculty to be able to really make a connection with each other. We need that if we're expecting to have higher test scores, higher graduation rates, lower dropout rates. I have to say that I came from a high school in Seattle where I never got to know any teachers except one, and she was actually in a resource center, and she cared. And this was at a time in my life when I was brand new from Metlakatla, which was about 800 population at that time, to Seattle, which was probably 500,000. And I know what it feels like to not, for teachers not to care, except for Mrs. Brown. And I really appreciate what she did for me. I probably got the only A that I ever got in high school because of her. And so what I'm looking forward to is for our teachers and our students to be able to relate to each other, maybe a lot better than they do right now.
Okay, for 3 years, I would like to kind of going off of what Judy has said, seeing more resources for children. That's the one thing that I have noticed, especially within my children, when they come home telling me about, we have blanket teachers coming into our school and they're coming and teaching new words and making that connection with the teachers, but also giving them the resources like subsistence, learning those things. That's the one thing I wish I would have learned more throughout my school years. Um, Especially with my teachers, because you don't forget them. And growing up in the Kenai Peninsula, we did have a lot of turnover with our teachers, staff, faculty. And that was one thing is that I remember going out, going to each day, just learning about, Alaska and everything. So that's what I like.
We got to get Rob on this end.
Rob, I'm here. Yeah, I think I have a passion for reading. When I look at the school number 75 in the high school, 75% of the high school students are below reading grade level. I think that is something that I would focus, and we have something here called the READS Act. The governor got that through. I would be a big proponent of pushing the READS Act down to the lower grades and getting that established firmly right off the bat. As far as the high school goes and the kids that are there, they say education is really quite simple. It's just a matter of imparting knowledge in a way that children appreciate it, students appreciate it. I think we just need to get back to the basics of education. We need to go one-on-one with our students, find out what they like and what they dislike, and focus on that. Go for the things that they're interested in. And as a result, kids will want to read about it. So thank you.
You can hold on to that. And we'll go to Judy. We'll just go down the table for our next questions. And we're just gonna jump right into these. And so this will be fun. So the district, of course, has standard operating costs along with desired capital projects and certain financial liabilities, such as the multi-million-dollar debt owed to the borough for the underfunding of district health insurance obligations. Except for unforeseen emergency circumstances, would you support raising local taxes to provide additional education funding? If yes, please explain.
I haven't really thought about that, but I don't believe that the tax would be very popular. I think that with the kind of staff that we have that deal with those kinds of issues, I believe that they will be able to come up with a way to deal with that budget issue. So no, I don't think a tax is good.
Hillary?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. Except for unforeseen emergency circumstances, would you support raising local taxes to provide additional education funding? If yes, please explain.
I think today with our economy, I think it would be highly unpopular just for the locals here. We're already, paying a lot of money being on an island. I would say no, because with the unforeseen, amount, we can actually figure something out. And it just takes going to the table and, bouncing ideas off of each other. And unless it's absolutely necessary, it's not in my favor.
And we'll come back to Rob and then go to Catherine.
Well, I would definitely say no. I think that our education outcomes are very bad. We're the last in the whole nation as far as education goes, and we spend the most money. We spend $18,000 per student in 2020, and what are we getting for it? I wouldn't say we're getting much if we're 49th or we're last in education. So my thing is that we're funneling all this money into administrative and support staff and not teachers. My thing is teachers should be rewarded for good test scores. If they perform and excel, they should be rewarded. I agree that teachers should get more money if they're doing a better job. But the way that the system is now, everyone gets the same. And I think that they need to be rewarded. So no, I don't think a tax is going to help anything. I think what we have to do is we have to get back down to fundamentals. And what I'm saying is we need to look at an outside audit into our finances and see what's going on there. I think that we could do more budget cutting across the board, maybe 2% in each department, so we can get our numbers to where they need to be.
Catherine.
No, I would not support a tax increase, a local tax increase. As these two lovely ladies already stated, our cost of living here is incredibly high. I worked a lot with the public of Ketchikan, and I know how hard it is for people to even be able to buy groceries. I was talking to someone today about how popular our PFD sales were because that's when we had money, when they had money, and that's when they could stock up their freezers. So no, absolutely not. I think that some of the things that Rob was just saying is a part of a much, much, much bigger conversation. Funding of the schools is complicated. I do believe that there are a lot of other funding sources that we can get creative on. And I am definitely a proponent of going and lobbying at the state level for an increase in the base student allocation amount.
Thank you. If you want to pass it down to Hillary, we'll start with her next and going hand in hand with the last question. And we'll give you 2 minutes to answer this one because it's a little more complicated and kind of what you were already alluding to, Catherine. Now, Alaska municipalities must provide a minimum amount of funding to their school districts, which is known as the required local contribution. But there is also a maximum local contribution that can be provided, which caps total local funding to every municipal school district. With limited resources due to a variety of factors such as inflation, along with a cap on what can be contributed by the borough to the district, what do you believe are some creative and innovative solutions the district could implement to preserve and stretch the limited resources currently available? We'll start with you, Hillary, and 2 minutes each.
That's a really good question. I, from what I'm understanding, a lot of this is new to me, so I hope you guys forgive me. I'm still kind of learning from this exposure, but a big thing, and I'm always advocating, like I said, for Native children, is working with our local, tribes, figuring out what resources they have there. I know that there's different ways that you can come together and have a bigger picture of whatever outcome you're looking for, depending on what it is. Kind of what I got right now.
There's no easy answer. It's okay. And we'll we can actually, that's great. We'll go Judy and go backwards.
Okay. I think I'll make this 1 minute.
Okay.
Well, like Hillary said, this area is new to me. And I would like to say, I would like to defer to staff, but I also believe that we as school board members can come up with creative ways to bring about funding into the school district. I believe my personal feeling is that if the school district had a closer partnership with the tribes, that might help to alleviate some of the budget problems that we may be trying to overcome. This is one area that I have to do a lot more homework in. I'm not really sure. I'm glad Catherine's here because I know she has ideas. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No pressure. Thank you. One of the first conversations I had was with Superintendent Robbins after my candidacy became official. And I went and I met with him and I said, you know what, I don't really understand how the school district business wise, like how does it operate as a business? And he spent quite a bit of time with me explaining to me just a big picture, 30,000-foot view of the budget. Okay, so we bring in, our budget is about $46 million. 40 million or so, if I'm remembering, I don't know, don't quote me on these numbers, but a lot of that, 75% of that comes from the state. And then the rest of it comes from Borough. And then we also have some income from grant funding that the superintendent was able to secure, I know for sure, to assist with getting teacher coaches, which is something that we haven't had before. And then he went into great detail with me about how he went through the budget when they discovered that they had this huge deficit from the health insurance issue. How are we going to handle that? What are we going to deal with? We had a drop of, oh my gosh, 10% of students or something like that, which was about 200 students in enrollment. And with that comes a drop in the amount of money that we get from the state. So we had a huge deficit there. So we can get creative. We can figure out how to cut our costs, which the superintendent explained to me in pretty great detail about what he had done. Which positions don't we need? Do we have enough students to cover these? All of the different things he went through. So then my business owner brain gets going. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's absolutely, that makes sense. That's what I would do. Second, is we figure out how to increase our revenues in creative ways, whether that's grant funding, love the idea of partnerships. Where else can we go? At our store, we would try to sell more peanut butter. Put one more thing in people's baskets, right? How can we get creative like that in how we bring money into the district?
I like that question. It's going to take a community to come together. We need a task force the community has some solutions. Some of my solutions, well, if we look at the numbers, teacher salaries increased by a minuscule 1% between 2002 and 2020. The number of teaching staff decreased by 7% between 2002 and 2019. But at the same time, we spent on general administrator salaries, they increased by 42% and 18%, which is support staff and administrators. So I think that we could do more with less as far as administrators, and we could have more teachers that are focused on our students so we can get the scores up. Some of my things are, let's turn off the lights. Do we need the lights on all the time? Can we turn down the thermostats by a couple degrees? I say we do a 2% cut through all the departments. I mean, if we looked at the budget in each of the departments and we actually got a detailed budget, we could find some pickings there. We could do an audit on each of the schools and find out, are these numbers jiving? Is there some fluff in this? Or, because I work for the ferries. So there's some things that we do back and forth and state budgets. There's this, stuff is not there that is there. So I'm saying, let's get a hold on our finances. If we owe $6 million short in insurance, where was the business? Where were the people that were watching? Who was paying the bills? How could we get so far in the hole? And now I think the school's asking for another 1.4 million from the assembly. So money's going out the door. It's just like leaving a door open. You got to shut it, just like mom told you to. So let's shut the door.
And again, there's no easy answers to that question. I could stand up here for a couple hours and give a seminar on school finance. And but nobody wants to listen to that. But the taxpayers of Ketchikan contribute roughly $12 million in academic capital costs to the $46 million budget of the school district. And with the cap, we're only about $1 million under that as a community. So there's not a whole lot of room left. So it's got to be a piece of the conversation. And when whoever gets elected, the Ketchikan Chamber of Commerce will be willing to help come up with some creative solutions because it affects the community across the board. I do. Yeah, that was me pontificating. I'm done now.
Because if you're going to, I can too.
No, we're gonna shift gears a little bit into a different question. Thanks, Jackie. I'm the moderator. It's okay. This is in the form of a question. All to say we're shifting gears. In 2023, social media is a very prominent part of our lives and is a crucial method for quickly communicating information. And it is an important tool for candidates, and it can also be highly useful for elected officials to connect with their constituents. However, each governing body has specific rules regarding representation of the body as a whole to the public by individual members. This has proven somewhat difficult and controversial in the past, so this is a two-part question. As an as an elected official, how would you conduct yourself on social media? And should elected officials be held to a higher standard for their behavior and activities on social media? We'll start with Rob.
If we talk about social media, there's good things and there's bad things about it. It's a tool, but it's like anything else. A tool in the hands of someone can also do harm too. So I think we really need to watch our words. Words have consequences. So I mean, if we're a ethical body and we are above standards, then we should really be careful what we say, because words can, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words can really hurt you or something like that. So yeah, I agree. Now back to the students, kids are just being overwhelmed with social media. I mean, kids have to drop their phones in a bucket before they come to class because they're so addicted to it. So how can we harness that addiction into actual education? And I think our teachers are a key point in that. Our teachers know what our kids are interested in, and I think that our cell phone usage is out of control, and we need to really rein it in.
So, can you repeat the question?
I sure can.
Especially because it's two parts.
Two parts. So, let me find where I'm at. As an elected official, how would you conduct yourself on social media? And should elected officials be held to a higher standard for their behavior and activities on social media?
To answer the second question, absolutely yes. You are a public figure, a public representative. What you say and what you post influences people and can represent, people can form opinion or beliefs about, let's say, the school district or the borough attorney or your own personal business or whatever it is that you have. It's very important when you're to be thoughtful about that, specifically on social media. What was the first question? How would I personally represent myself? Okay. I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I am very social media savvy, especially on Facebook. I present myself respectfully. I share positivity, love, and light and information, and stay away from as much negativity or controversial topics as I can. If I were to be elected and if I were sharing information that happened and I ran out of time, I'd be happy to finish that and tell you in person. I still have no time.
That was the warm up. Catch her afterwards. Sorry.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, I sure can. I won't do any more two-part questions. As an elected official, how would you conduct yourself on social media? And should elected officials be held to a higher standard for their behavior and activities on social media?
Yes, I think as elected officials, we should be held to a higher standard, and we should ourselves invoke that higher standard on ourselves. It's not just up to the community, it's up to us. I hear people talk about how they don't like the negativity that they come across on Facebook. And I, much like Catherine, I see very little of that. I think I am real careful about those people that I choose to be friends with. And so that would be my conduct on social media. Yes, we should hold ourselves to a higher level.
That was perfectly 60 seconds. Good job.
So succinct.
Hillary.
So yes, I do believe that social media is a very influential platform, and I can speak firsthand. I have a daughter who will be 13 on Halloween, and the questions that she comes to me with just from her social media, I myself on social media am very particular of who I add. But again, it's about knowing that the children, like specifically my daughter's friends who add me because they know I'm the same person, and just making sure that I'm not, posting anything that's, you know, unrelated to my family. um, but I believe working at the local tribe has prepared me to put that professional front on, regardless of my feelings of anybody.
Thank you. Catherine will start us on the next question. So again, we're kind of just running through a gamut of topics, but in prior years, there's been on and off animosity between the Borough Assembly and the school board. Animosity and tension between the two bodies, which at times over the years has been extensive. How important do you believe it is to maintain a healthy relationship with the Borough Assembly? What would you do as a board member to foster such a relationship with your colleagues on the Assembly?
Yeah, I have been paying attention for a long time about what's been going on within the school district and, the city council and the borough assembly. And that was one of my big questions that I had when I came into this was, what is the relationship like right now? And so I met with a borough assembly member that uh, and had that conversation and said, "How is it? How are things right now?" And so we had a really great conversation about that. I believe that it is very important to maintain, to foster, to really be intentional about having positive relationships with all other entities, specifically though the borough assembly. Healthy does not mean that there's not conflict. Healthy doesn't mean that we all just get along and it's sing kumbaya together, but that we're able to be respectful, to ask questions, to understand, and to come to an agreement at the end that we can all live with and do the best that we can to feel good with. And still, the next day, even if we have opposing thoughts, we're still friendly and respectful to each other.
Judy.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. How important do you believe it is to maintain a healthy relationship with the Borough Assembly? And what would you do as a board member to foster such a relationship with your colleagues on the Assembly?
Well, I think obviously it's very important that we have a healthy relationship with the Borough Assembly. They contribute a lot of their funds to the operation of the school district. I think that they ultimately want what's best for our school district. And we as school board members would know that we have to work in a very professional way with them. The school board is, I believe, and I've been to many school board meetings over the years, the school board is always been filled with very professional people. And I would look forward to being part of a healthy relationship with the Borough Assembly if I'm elected.
Hillary.
I believe that it's vital to our community. We need to just get the basics. We need to find a common ground, have those hard conversations, and just a reminder that what we're coming together for is bigger than what we personally feel. agreeing to disagree, but also being respectful, as Catherine said.
Good question. I believe as a taxpayer in the city of Ketchikan, when I watch and see what's going on between the school board and the assembly, it kind of gets me irritated. When we have a $6 million hole in our budget from COVID and all the sequential years, and it's like, how did that happen? Where's the communication? How can we deal with this? I mean, this is a lot of money. I don't know what happened. I don't know the details, but something happened because there's a bill right here. And we as taxpayers, we want to see things work as a city, as government. So I think that we need to really come together in those two boards and we need to talk communication. We also need a budget so that we can see it and it needs to be detailed. And we need to know what the bottom line is. And sure, there's disagreements. Yeah, we're going to have disagreements, but let's talk about it. But let's get it out in the open. Let's not hide behind brick walls.
Thank you. We'll go to Judy to start the next question. And again, kind of jumping around to some different pertinent items. This last session, Governor Dunleavy introduced HB 105, a comprehensive piece of legislation regarding parental rights. Not to get lost in any of the specifics of that bill, but assuming students can meet educational requirements and make alternative arrangements to receive any necessary credits to graduate, do you support the overall right of parents to opt their children out of specific classes without penalties?
First of all, I think that the school district offers to students those classes that are important to them or that they deem are important to them. I think that if a parent really objects to what their child may be learning, there should be some method of them to voice that. And yeah, that's really a tough one. And I guess it's hard because I think about when I was going to school, parents really didn't have a whole lot to say about that. So, yeah, I think that's a great question, and it's something that the school board will probably need to work on. Thank you.
Can you repeat the question?
I sure can, no problem. Assuming the student can make arrangements, alternative arrangements to meet all the educational requirements necessary for them to graduate and to receive necessary credits to progress in their grade, do you support the overall right of parents to opt their children out of specific classes without any penalties?
If there's an alternative to getting these credits, correct?
Correct.
I think that it really depends on the situation. You can go from religion to who knows. But ultimately, it's the family because I just have a strong feeling for different family dynamics. So you're not sure what's going on and you can't hold them all to that standard. Specifically, I've been to Mount Edgecombe East High School in a village up north, and I can say that I had a really hard time. And coming back to Ketchikan, I ended up having to drop out and get my GED because I was not allowed to get those credits that I needed to graduate. So
Catherine, you can go ahead and we'll sit down.
Can you, I think I understand, but would you just repeat it one more
Yeah,
time?
assuming there are alternatives for a student to meet all the educational requirements and receive any necessary credits, do you support the overall right of parents to opt their children out of specific classes without penalty?
Yes. That's my gut instinct is to say yes. And that comes from being a parent. I have 3 children. My oldest just graduated from K High in May. My middle child is a senior this year, and my son is a sophomore. And while I will not opt them out of anything, it's nice to know that that is an option that I have and a choice that I can make. I have a lot more questions about that though. So if this is a hypothetical situation, this is where I'm at today. If that were to be presented as something that came up to the school board and I was on it, it would be a lot of questions to understand and to gain clarity. Because when you first asked it, I was like, well, is this just for high school students? Is this also then, or elementary school? Like, where does this fit in? Is it only for specific subjects inside of elementary curriculum? Or are we talking about a whole year, a whole semester? I just have a lot of questions that I would want to know if I was sitting at the school board and making that decision.
I think we need to be culturally sensitive. I agree with the governor. From what I hear, education and local governments and school boards, it's under local control. So if it's local school boards and parents control the policies, then the parents should have the right. If they don't like it, they should be able to go to an optional class. And they could do it online. I know people that do it. I've talked to them. Their kids go to school, but they don't want, for instance, sex education. They don't want someone else teaching their kids about sex. So they have their own health class that they do online. And they have other things they do online. And it all works out and they graduate. And the kid is better off, I think, because the parents are in charge.
Thank you. And I can't remember who we started with last time. Oh, okay. So Hillary, you're up again. This is a big issue for the chamber as we look at how do we, the wonderful students that we have graduating from Ketchikan, when they go off to whether it's college or to trade school or to the military, how do we get them to come back home and help build the next generation of Ketchikan? Workforce development is a key piece of, the future of Ketchikan, and our state as a whole, which is the most economically diverse state you'll find. So the question is, during the routine curriculum review and revision process, would you be supportive of more emphasis on career and technical education in high school, including the potential creation of a specific CTE, career and technical education track for high school students to take?
I just had a conversation with my almost 13-year-old the other day. She looked at me and she said, "Am I going to college?" I said, "I sure hope so." But then we started talking about, what she would want to do. And I looked at her and I said, "Just get your basics, please. We can just discover that later on." So I would be happy to have that become something of the future. I think that that's where something I would have benefited from in my years was to have somebody kind of pushing me through that. Um, I have worked, like I said, in our local tribe in the education department, and I started out as a receptionist, and I kind of saw, how things from our tribal scholars to our members who needed help with employment. And then I moved up to employment support specialist. So I know how important it can be for our local community to get jobs. So
Yes, we'll go back down the table. That seems to be working pretty well. Unless somebody doesn't want to go last.
Can you repeat the question again?
Sure. During the routine curriculum review and revision process, would you be supportive of more emphasis on career and technical education in high school, including the potential creation of a specific CTE track for students to take?
I would say absolutely. I would be in favor of that. That was that was the first thing I wrote down in my notes before I came here this evening. I think that that the school district and if not the faculty already know that we have a shortage of electricians, plumbers, carpenters, very high paying jobs. And we don't really put in as much emphasis on that kind of education versus college education. Um, I I have 4 kids. One of them is a college graduate and actually works here in Ketchikan and up in Juneau. And the other, and I knew that he was going to go to college from a very young age. From my other 2 kids, I knew that vocational education was the way they wanted to go. So as a parent, that was my input to them. I encouraged both of those.
I have had a lot of conversations about college and what the future looks like with my kids, or at that age. Um, and I am thankful for all of the different electives that are at K High. I was very surprised at the number of options that our kids have. They get to try different things. My son, when he was a freshman last year, got to do construction, got and to do culinary, and one of my daughter's friends does welding. There are so many opportunities that we have, and I think that that's wonderful and beautiful. And then we have a ceremony at the end of the year, and we give out scholarships to colleges, and we celebrate the kids who got full rights to colleges. And we don't highlight the kids who are going to go to vocational school or who are interested in things like that. So yes, absolutely, I am in support of more vocational, doing a special, track for those kids. And then I also think it goes beyond that too, and how we recognize and celebrate what it is and the options and all of the paths that our kids can go to.
I like this question. I'm going to give you some facts. 23 to 25% of our high school students now are eligible to go to college. What do we do with the rest of them? We have a huge building over there. I was walking around the other day going to my daughter's class. I got lost. Here's what I think we should do. We don't have a lot of choice in this school district for schools. We have 2 charter schools. Let's make another charter school just for CTE. Cut the high school in half. If 23% of them are going to college, then they should have 23% or more of the space. The rest of them should have VOTEC training. Now, we have in Seward a perfect school that's paid for by Alaska, and they have a contract with Mitsubishi to be trained in motors. And so why are we not communicating with them and having a training program through that? So the other thing is we have a 5.4% dropout rate at the high school. That's like 68 kids drop out. Where are those kids going? With this new charter school, they would be going to these highly paid jobs in the community. The reason I painted my house this year is because I couldn't get anybody else to do it. I have to become a contractor because there are no carpenters or any contractors doing big jobs. We need plumbers, we need electricians, and we need the unions to step up too with the apprenticeship programs in this town to keep people here.
Thank you. We'll actually start with you, Rob. So
Yes.
keep the microphone close. This has already been touched on a little bit, but I would love to hear, because I know there's some passion on this, and I would love to hear it expounded upon. For the Ketchikan Gateway Borough School District in the 2022-2023 school year, 29% of all students were Alaska Native. The district has developed an overall strong cooperative relationship with the various entities and organizations representing Alaska Natives, including holding routine government-to-government consultations with Ketchikan Indian community. How would you work to build on that current foundation to ensure continued success and growth in holistically supporting Alaska Native students? We'll start with Rob.
Well, back to my thesis, education is quite simple. It's just a matter of imparting knowledge in a way that children appreciate it. And culturally sensitive, we have to be sensitive to the other cultures. My daughter's Native, my wife is too. And there's things that we do that you don't do everywhere else. So I think if we impart that knowledge into our kids, we need more subsistence. We need more we need brought back languages that were lost. We also need ways of doing things because we've gotten so commercialized and we've gotten so far off track with our diets. Do you know that the schools throughout the land, 1%, $1 per student goes to physical education and nutrition? You should go down to the schools sometime and eat the lunch there and then tell me what you think about it. I know it's cheap, but I mean, is it wholesome? Is it healthy? We have things within our own waters that we could make a deal to take to the schools so that we can eat better foods.
Can you repeat the question for me?
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. With the current foundation that the district has built over the years in mind, how would you work to build on that to ensure continued growth and success in holistically supporting Alaska Native students?
I love that there has been such a positive relationship that has been fostered over the years. My daughter graduated, like I said, in May, and it was incredible. I went to the graduation ceremony, and there were a number of tribal scholars who were there wearing their regalia proudly. I graduated in 1996, and there was nobody who was doing that. And it's pretty phenomenal. And what I would do, because I'm not Alaska Native, is that I would show up at the table with an open heart and an open mind and ask questions to understand and not questions to judge, but rather questions to understand.
I think that the school district and KIC and Saxman to some extent have really worked hard at building strongly the relationship that they have. I think we both know, as a KIC member, I know, but also a grandmother of students. And I know staff at the school. I know first of all, how hard it is for us to even make time for us to get together. So when we do, we know that we've worked really hard to do this. It's very important to us. And I would just like to say that you mentioned 29% of the school population is Native. There are several other minorities in the school, and it makes me think that we probably have about 50% minority within the school district. So that's another interesting thought.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes.
Is it working?
Yeah, that's right. How do you build on continued the current foundation to ensure continued growth and success in holistically supporting Alaska Native students?
Well, first of all, I would like to give a shout out to is it Robbins?
Yes.
Yes. As a previous employee with Ketchikan Indian community, he showed up for our meetings. He had questions. He had answers. He was very involved with just checking in on the tribe and just making sure that if there was any questions or if he could be of help, he's just a great advocate in this area, and I cannot thank him enough. Yes.
You're back. You're gonna restart.
Yes.
Okay.
I lost track. I'm sorry.
That's good.
You mind elaborating on the last part? Just kills the time.
I mean, I think we'll walk around. I only have one more question after this, and we can take some from the audience, anyways. No, I think you touched on it pretty well. If you just wanted to, do you have anything you wanted to add just about?
Oh yeah, I do. Because I'm so personal. I just wanted to say that when we're talking about all of the minorities of Alaska Native children, I have previously said, I got my GED. I was one of those native children that was left out, I feel. And I would just like to say to all those children out there, you never know what you can do. I had made it to, I would say, a great career with the tribe. And I love to tell people, like I started out as a receptionist. I got my GED, and now I'm exposing myself to the community for the greater, good. And I want to uh, just be that example for those children who feel like they're not going to make it.
And it is interesting how quickly and how far things can come quickly, because it was during my term on the board. I remember drafting the charter for the Native Education Committee, and that was the first time we had anything like that in the school district. And that's been in the last 10 years. And so it's just something that's moving in the right direction. And I think it's important to keep that momentum going. My last question that I have written down, and then we'll take a couple from the audience. Uh, in 2022, nationwide, only 22% of eighth graders performed at or above proficiency level on the National Assessment of Educational Progress, the NAEP civics exam. As noted by the American Federation of Teachers, only 9 states in the District of Columbia require 1 year of U.S. government or civics, and that does not include Alaska. Organizations on all ends of the ideological spectrum, from the Center for American Progress to the Heritage Foundation, have identified growing apathy and diminishing civic engagement to be a major challenge in modern education. What are some ideas you have as to how we can tackle this important issue and work to practically change the way we teach civics and engage our students to be positively involved in their community?
Oh, good. That's a big question. And it makes me have more questions about it. We could just have a conversation so I could understand it better. Really. Yeah, absolutely. And I honestly don't know, other than starting the conversation. That's what I would do. Starting the conversation. What are we doing right now? What are we doing right now? How's it working? Is it a top priority for us? Is it more important than other things? And then what do we want to do? And working collaboratively with a group of people to come up with ideas, because I will be the first to tell you, I definitely don't have all the ideas. Sometimes I think I do. And I do have a lot of ideas. They're not all good. But it would be definitely, for me, it would be asking to understand again. I've said that before, and working collaboratively to come up with a solution for that.
Can I ask you to repeat that long question?
What are I'm speaking into the non-existent type voice. What are some ideas you have on how we tackle this important issue and work to practically change the way we teach civics and engage our students to be positively involved in the community?
I used to live in Metlakatla, and my 4 kids all went to school there, and go back quite often. And I was talking with a parent, and we were talking about what the kids there did not know about the history of their community. And so I selfishly felt that they should know that my grandfather designed the town hall and the boatways and other buildings. And so how do we get our kids to be interested in civics? It's the stories that we bring and that the school district can bring to the students. That's where civics starts. Thank you.
That's a hard one to follow through. I think I'm in kind of the same thought process. Is just the engagement, and I don't want to step on toes for teachers and their how they're going to be their teaching skills. Do you mind elaborating on civic?
No, I was hoping you would. That's why I've been there, done that. No. So just how do we work practically, pragmatically in engaging students to be positively involved, not only in our community, but just going off to wherever they may land, whether they stay where they go to college or they take a job somewhere out of college or they come back home. How do we reduce the apathy and encourage our students to be involved civically in whatever community they find themselves in?
As we are right now, running for school board, I am not aware of like all of the situations that they're currently dealing with, but I wanted to be a part of our community and I wanted to have that engagement. And I think that it's really healthy for people to go out there, even if they don't win. And I think just showing them my God.
Good. Rob.
That's a great question. You know, when I went to school, it was like a half a semester of learning about the flag and how to fold it, and how to, you know, how it should lay and, on the pole and everything. And we would invite military or the American Legion to come and give us a demonstration of that. That could be one way. But you know what we need in this country? We need unity. We don't need diversity. I think we need unity. We're under the United States. We need 1776 principles taught. We need American history back. Now they did a study in 2022 at the midterm election, and this was with 80% of the respondents. They're both Republicans and Democrats, and 80% of them believe that civic education is more important now than it was 5 years ago, and 65% said that they would support more funding for civics. So I believe the appetite is there, but it's just a matter of doing it. So we need to do it, just like we pledge to the flag. Before, I noticed that with all the meetings. I bet kids don't even know what the words mean and where they came from and what the flag, the stars and the stripes mean. So let's just get back to basic American education in the history department.
I can have my microphone message. Thanks. Great answers to some hard questions. Honestly, and this hopefully is a little bit of a relief. Only half of the questions you ever get asked, you'll have to deal with. It's funny how that happens. A lot of these things you'll just pass on by, but it just goes to show there's a lot as school board members what the job really entails. So we have a few minutes. Could take a couple questions from the audience if there are any. Or we'll move into candidate closing statements. Yes. Yeah.
So I'm a senior at K-High right now, and you guys talked about the trades and how you guys could help their chances of improving their success to actually get into a college or getting into their career of choice. What would be the most appropriate way to actually increase those odds for them?
If that makes sense. That's a good question. Who wants to go first? Okay.
I think, and I'll go back to my basic summary on reading. I think if 75% of the high school students cannot read up to grade level, that's a problem. When you go to college or whether you're reading a technical manual or you're reading anything, you need to know how to read. You need to understand it. Comprehension and reading are the most important thing. So we need to really help you in any way we can to make it interesting so that you will want to read more, that you will learn to read and write. And I feel that we can do that. The READS program, that's for, the lower grades. But what do we do with the high school students? Let's make it more interesting. Let's find out what makes you tick and what you enjoy, and let's just read about it.
So the question was, what can we do to help to increase the success of getting enrolled into or getting accepted into the college of their choice? Does it also include like vocational school or whatever it is? Okay. There's multiple parts to that. There's part school. there's the counselors who are at K-High who are responsible for sharing the information, working with the seniors, talking to them about, what scholarships are available. And, these are the requirements. Okay, I am a senior parent. I got my first email. It was so long and full of text, my eyes crossed. And I'm a good reader. Um, and so there's so much information. So how can we streamline it? But also we have that when I went to K-High, my son, like all of them were freshmen, and we went through the slideshow, and this is what you have to know. This is what you have to think about. These are the credits that you need. As a parent, maybe I missed the email. I wasn't shown that information again. I still haven't been shown it. So how can we start that message earlier, and how can we be more consistent with it, and how can we communicate it? I am a marketer and a communicator as well as a business owner. We're going to market that stuff, right? How can we market it so that our parents can understand it? Because I am a busy, overwhelmed single mom, and life is really hard. So how can we, as a school district, make it easier for the parents? But also, how can we make it easier for our staff to do that? How can we also, the families need to be involved in this too. It's not, the community needs to be involved in it. It's not just a one-sided, the school's responsible. We all are.
Yeah. How do we support? I really believe that it needs to, it needs to be a topic of conversation among school board members and also staff at the high school, at the junior high. I think that we are so conditioned to think that the only thing that our child can do is go to college. I think we're wrong. And we need to be open to, we as school board members, we need to be very loud about our support for vocational education in Alaska, and especially here in Ketchikan. Well, in many Alaska communities, many of the jobs, maybe most of the jobs, are those that are in the vocational trades. And we really need to recognize that. And like Catherine said, and I hadn't thought about this until she mentioned it, but we give a lot of kudos to our seniors who get scholarships, and we say their name, we talk about the amount of money that they brought in. But what do we do for those who go for scholarships? We really don't do very much. I would like to say that our nephew, who's actually now our son, became an apprentice, a journeyman carpenter. I couldn't think of the word. And it took him a long time. And he loves his work. I'm so glad. He lives in Seattle. He works on all kinds of buildings in Seattle and shows us where, the building. He's proud. He's so proud of what he does. And we need to pass that on to our kids. Thank you.
How to encourage it. If I were to be on the school board and that came up, I definitely would say going with the new age and promoting specifically somebody who has the time to go to different entities within our community, whether that be KIC or the vocational. It's through the state.
Vocational rehabilitation.
Yes. So I have had the opportunity to work with my position at KIC as employment support specialist. I work closely with she's a workforce development manager now, but Cameron Cage, she is impeccable. She reads essays for Cobell, just for her time. But she is a great resource. And also I've made friends with people who worked for Voc Rehab. And just having somebody who can encourage those opportunities, those resources, and as I say, new age, because we're going to have to advertise that. Kids these days, they scroll on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok mindlessly. Make it fun for them, make little short films, promoting it, posting it to your page for the school, just encouraging, is this something that you're interested in? But also checking in on all those kids who would like those opportunities and giving them resources, like I said, native, non-native, whatever our community has to offer.
What's your name, bud?
Alex.
Yeah. Alex, thank you for coming. Literally, the last time I've seen a high schooler here was me 10 years ago. So thank you for coming.
Thank you. Quick question is, one of our number one advocacy issues that we see coming from our school district and our school board to the legislature is asking for an increase in the BSA. Other than a BSA increase, what is something you as a board member would be asking of our legislature to help our schools succeed?
Other than a BSA increase, as a school board member, Catherine, you can go first. What would you advocate for?
I actually had a great conversation with one of the high school teachers, and he was talking to me about all kinds of different things, and talking about teacher salaries and this, and and all of that. And he said the biggest place that we are hurting when it comes to how we are taking care of our teachers and our staff is our retirement plan. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. He told me the history on it. Not enough for me even to repeat back to you in any way that would make sense or even be accurate. And then there was a change in it. And I see heads nodding in the background because it's terrible. We have a reputation. It was printed in an education publication that Alaska had the worst retirement plan. And he was like, we have to give our teachers security. We have to pay people well, but they have to know that they have security in their future. And if we aren't able to do that, we are failing them. And I was like, oh, great. I'm going to take this and I'm going to handle this and I'm going to fix it. I've dealt with profit sharing plans and I've dealt with retirement programs. And he's like, Catherine, this is at the state level. You have basically zero control over this. Oh, but that's what I would go and I would advocate for is to improve our plan and make it so that it is outstanding. That's just the only option for me.
I think the area that if I could pursue a dream and I didn't have to think of the other people on the school board, I would advocate for vocational education. I think it's really important. We live in a community where they are needed and they are wanted. We know that many of the older people are retiring out of those kinds of jobs. We need them. And I think that we can advocate for that at the state level.
Do you mind repeating?
Sure. Other than an increase to the base student allocation for education, what other funding mechanism or additional resources for the local school district would you advocate to the state to provide? There's not a wrong answer.
Okay. Well, I'm just thinking about like boats and stuff, getting kids out there, just encouraging them, but also, teaching them just basically what goes behind all of it. what helps our subsistence, like as far as like fishermen and the trades for our processing, and then who are our buyers. I definitely think that some sort of project getting children outside, that is going to be my biggest advocate.
This is not going to be popular, but I'm going to say it anyway. It has to be said. We need to break up the educational monopoly in the state. We're 49th in education. We need to adopt, like Arkansas, the LEARNS program, where the money follows the student. The parents have control over the money and it follows the student, and they can choose where they can send their children. If the schools are not providing the education and the scores that are needed, we need to find some other solutions. We're not getting our bang for the buck, as I say. So how do we do that? Well, let the parents decide where to send their kids, and the money follows the children.
All right, and with that, we need to wrap up. I promised that you guys could have closing statements, so we'll do 1 minute closing statements to close out the night. Thank you again, everybody, for coming. And so 1 minute, we'll just work our way back down the table. So Hillary, we'll start with you. Again, no wrong answer.
Well, I'm very nervous, if you can't tell. I want to thank you guys for coming here. I appreciate the support for all of us. And I feel like no matter who lands, it's still going to be a seat filled with winners. So I look forward to having harder conversations with the next meet and greets, kind of diving into what we're looking at as far as our current issues, priority line of them. And I think that's all I got right now.
Thank you. I have some bullet points here, and so I'll very quickly talk about them. I'm glad to hear that each school has a counselor in that school. That hasn't always been the case. I would like to remind the district that a third of the population is Native. That's 33%. You said 29, and you may be more correct than I am. And my thinking is that if Ketchikan School District wants to raise scores, wants to raise the graduation rate, wants to lower the dropout rate, I think it would help if more attention were given to Native students, other minority students, and students at high risk. Thank you.
I'm not sure what to say. Ketchikan is a very special place, and we have a really special school district for being a little tiny island in the middle of, well, not in the middle, down in southern Southeast Alaska, with limited resources and a small pool of people. And, I have run a business. I've managed people and teams and budgets, and I've volunteered for nonprofits. I've done all sorts of stuff. But number one is I'm a parent. And I want to help other parents' children be successful. Thank you.
Can I stand up?
I mean, you can.
I'm going to. So life is about balance. We have to balance things. So I'm pleading to you that and suggesting that I would be a great balance on the school board. The teeter-totter is this way, it needs to go this way. Now we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, which those are the hot words these days, right? But that diversity, does it include different opinions and different thoughts? I suggest no. Is my thought welcome in this community? Is my opinions welcome in this community? I think we need to think about that. Is it equitable that they're not? Now, 20 or 30 years ago, a guy like me would just be the run of the mill person up here running for office. But now, because of my opinions and the way that I think I'm different, and I feel like I'm excluded sometimes. So I feel like you need me. You need the balance, and I'm the balancer. Thank you for your vote for Rob Arnold.
Can I stand? Oh, wait.
You can't.
Thanks. Can I sit down? Yeah. So thank you to all of our candidates, Rob Arnold, Catherine Tatsuda, Judy Guthrie, and Hillary Reifenberg. I got everybody's names right. Okay, good. And thank you to our illustrious timer, Jackie Mack, for keeping us on track. And thank you to our audience and everybody who tuned in. Thank you to Ketchikan Daily News and everybody who will read about this tomorrow. And it's officially the kickoff of municipal campaign season. Thank you all for putting your name in the hat. It is not easy. I know that for a fact, but it is very rewarding work. So thank you all for bringing your passion and your ideas and just who you are to the table and your willingness to serve. We really appreciate it. And so thank you, everyone. And I hope everybody has a great rest of their night.
Thank you, everybody.
And don't forget about next week.
Oh, is that next week? Yeah, it is next week. All right. Yeah, thanks, Jackie. Michelle's not here to keep me on track, so Jackie has to. So next week, same time, same place, we will have the Borough Assembly candidates here for their forum on September 13th at 5:30. And then a couple weeks later on the 27th, that is when we will do our final candidate forum of the season, same time, same place, the 27th for the Ketchikan City Council members. You can join in person, watch live, watch on KPU TV, read about it in the daily news, and hosted by the Ketchikan Chamber of Commerce. We've been doing these for a long time. We're happy to be able to keep them up, and thank you for supporting us in doing that. And I'll stop talking now. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.